Collaborate between the state and the federal and the local government to address the issues that we need. I think the Commission will bring attention to the Asian American residents contributing to the state's cultural, society, economic, government with addressing the need and promoting the well-being of the Asian American across the state. There is no money required. We're just going to have a body that will study. It is going to be a study commission and report every year during a legislative session to the governor and both the State House and State Senate. Now, how do we get that passed? So this is what we're proposing. If not today, then hopefully by next week we're going to drop a bill, and this is the the draft of the bill that we're proposing, and hopefully we'll have senators and state representatives supporting what we're trying to create here. And this is going to be the first time, if this bill is passed, that we're actually going to have a bill passed in the Senate and the House, not just by the governor, and will give authority to the state body to make sure that we have a fair representation. So this is the actual copy that we will put it on our website to make sure that everybody kind of takes a look at it and see, what are we proposing. And it's pretty much the simple things that we've discussed that we've been doing since last year legislative day. So this is what we need. We have 119 Republicans in the House and 60 members, the Democrats, and we need about 91 to pass this resolution. On the Senate side, it's much easier. We have about 18 Democrats and 38 Republicans, total 56, and we need only 29. My recommendation to everybody here is go to the Georgia Secretary of website and put your last name or first name and contact your representatives and to support this bill. Further, I'm going to invite Mike Weckar to talk about the legislative process and how we're going to conduct this thing. And hopefully by the end of the session, we'll have a resolution passed if we do a push to our state legislative body, both the Republicans and the Democrats. Mike?
Thank you, Farouk, and good morning to all of you. Thanks for braving the cold weather, and we promise we'll get you out of here before it snows this afternoon. We were talking last night on Facebook, and all of us have agreed that promptly at 2 o'clock, every one of us will get in our cars and go home at the same time, so that we can be assured of spending a whole lot of quality time on the interstates. Farouk, thank you so much for your comments. You've done a real good job of explaining what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. As I was talking to Nira a few minutes ago, the devil, though, is in the details. And what folks say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, we're going to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. When it comes time to them actually putting their name on the sheet of paper to actually get this done, you get a resistance factor. So instead of the needle going like this, it's... So we are in the process now of negotiations. And as you know, passing legislation is a very long negotiating process. I've been working on a piece of legislation for a client in Savannah for 2 years, negotiating with legislative counsel, who are the folks that actually write the legislation for you. The way this works, even if we were to take this draft resolution to legislative counsel, or once it goes to legislative counsel, it probably won't look exactly like this once it comes out, because they will look at it and put it in precisely what their legislative form is, and each one of the attorneys has a different method of doing that, so there's variations from attorney to attorney who are up there. So basically what you do is get the concept, take that concept to them, and then they put it into the proper legislative format. Well, I've negotiated with this one attorney for almost 2 years on getting legislation, a particular piece of tax legislation through, which is not through, drafted, which is rather difficult. And each time we talked, the resistance became more and more because we were trying to do something that was deemed to be unconstitutional in the approach we were trying to take. And dealing with tax matters and local taxation, obviously there are a lot of hoops that you have to go through. So we kept going back over the summer. Finally got with him during this legislative session. Took about 2. I was supposed to get with him at 3 o'clock on snow day. So that's how snake bit this particular legislation has been. Finally got together with him over emails on the first of the week and started back and forth and realized I was getting a little bit of traction when he started saying, well, maybe you can do it this way. And I said, aha, okay, now I'm beginning to see what we do. So finally proposed something to him. It came back with exactly the language that I had written, which once I looked at it said, we really didn't want to put those numbers in there. But we had it. We had a bill sponsor ready to go. We've introduced the bill. And it's out there. We can change it as it moves through the process. So while we're not at the point of negotiating over exactly what the language is, we are negotiating on who actually is going to introduce this legislation. We got about that far away a few days ago in the House and about that far away in the Senate, and everybody's stepping up to the line and looking over and saying, I'm not sure if I want to do that or not. So we're going to continue our approach and our pressure. And one thing that was revealed a couple of days ago is since we have housed this commission task force with the Department of Economic Development because of the huge economic ties that this state, the port, the economy has with the Pacific Rim. By putting it with the Department of Economic Development, we now have a natural tie into Ron Stevens, who is the chairman of the Economic Development and Tourism Committee. So I think our next step, he actually represents me down in Savannah as well, and does a lot of legislation for us. I think our next step is going to move from approaching this from a nationality approach it from the economic impact approach, and see if we can't move this legislation forward in that manner. Because the important thing in here is we're asking this group to look at the economic impact that this group has on the economy of Georgia, look at doing things to open up that economic activity and get folks even more involved in the very fabric of the society of Georgia. Now, what happens once we get it introduced? Well, when you're trying to get a bill introduced, you're trying to be an artist. Well, let's say I'm called a house painter, not necessarily an artist. You're trying to paint your sponsors so that you can get the best possible traction on moving it forward. So you want a Republican leader, you want lesser a Democratic leader, but you want Democrats on there. You want other members on there as well, so that you have some power and some oomph, so to speak, to move this through. So we'll be moving through that as we go through the process. And once we get those people in place, then the bills will be introduced. But we're not going to stop at that. Since Governor Barnes did have an AAPI commission, we're going to be meeting next week with Chris Riley, the governor's chief of staff. I already have an executive order drafted that all they have to do is look at it and say, oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, we'll do that. So we're going to offer that to them as well and see if we can get them as fully engaged in this as we want them to be. So what happens once we get this thing introduced? Do we kind of throw our hands up and applaud and say we're finished? No, this has to go through the way we visualize it. This would have to go through the same process of any other bill. Now, there are alternatives. If we do the governor's executive order with a stroke of a pen, he creates it and it's done, other than naming the members, but the governor names all the members. That may be something he wants. That may be something that we want. Quite frankly, that would not, in my mind, that would not create a problem. We're going with a joint resolution of the House and the Senate that would therefore allow members of the House to make appointments, members of the Senate to make appointments, to give us a body of 12 people. Is that the right number? Well, give me a number. I had a talk last night with an individual in Savannah about a board issue, trying to determine what's the right number and who should be represented on there. And I'm sitting there at midnight wondering, why am I arguing with somebody about whether there ought to be 10 members or 13 members on the board? As far as I'm concerned, at the end of the day, it does not really matter as long as you have the right members on that board or commission. So that's one of the things, though, believe it or not, that will be in play. So, but then there's an alternative. We can go with a Senate-only commission, or we could go with a House-only commission. Quite frankly, the joint House and Senate commission would have much more clout. That would bring back an annual report to the members of the General Assembly with recommendations, where the House group or the Senate group would very simply send something to each one of those bodies. They would not intermingle across the halls, and the likelihood of much getting done becomes far less than if we have the joint commission. So what we have to do with any piece of legislation, what we're going to try to do is get it introduced the same way on both sides, so we can move both of them at the same time. Hopefully they'll cross, and then we won't have to worry a whole lot about bringing them together. All we'll do is substitute one for the other and send it back, and we'll be done. But we've got to go through the committee process. We've got to get one side to pass it, then send it over to the other side, get that side to act on it as well, and then once it's passed, it would be signed and effectively would become a law in the state by the governor. Now, we've tried to avoid what we thought were some objections to the formation of this group by not saying we are going to have 4 Koreans, 3 Japanese, 2 Vietnamese, 6 Filipinos, etc. What we have done is set up basically a forum whereby anybody that is interested, or any group that is interested in being represented on this body, can nominate names, and to provide an entire basket of individuals that then the appointing individuals would be the ones that would be forced to make the decisions on who the proper people should be on this. Does this politicize it? Well, yes it does, but it's a political process anyway, so you can't get away from it. And it's a lot easier trying to do it this way, at least in my opinion, than it is to say, okay, we're going to make the decision on what the proper mix is on this body. That would be a hurdle that I think we really don't need to be going after at this particular time. As Farouk said, ultimately we need 91 votes in the House. We need 29 votes in the Senate. While, yes, Farouk is correct, 29 is a lot less than 91. It's equally hard to get 91 votes in the House and 29 votes in the Senate. But it can be done. You do not have to go out and buttonhole every one of these individuals. On any piece of legislation, generally there's a handful of people who are interested in what that piece of legislation is going to do. I'll give you an example. Either yesterday or the day before, there was a piece of legislation on the floor of the House that changed the alcoholic beverage laws so that the city of Savannah could set that the bars in the city of Savannah could be open on the day before St. Patrick's Day. So statewide law, if a bar wants to be open on a March 16th that falls on a Sunday to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, they can do so. Now, that was not something that concerned a whole lot of people. It got 178 votes to 6, 7, 8. There were a handful of people, Savannah, who wanted to see this done, and the members followed their leadership. So that's the kind of thing we need to look at with this. There's nothing unique to this, nothing unique to this piece of legislation. I will say oftentimes getting a piece of legislation through is not something that happens in the first year. Sometimes it takes 2 years, sometimes it takes 3 years. And so do I hold out the prospect that we are going to get this done this year? Yes, I hold out that prospect. I'm not saying that we're going to get it done, but if it can be done, then we will get it done, and perhaps this time next year we'll be able to stand up here and talk with you about the findings and the reports of that AAPI task force on what needs to be done, how we increase economic opportunity, and how we get more judges and folks involved in the political process in this state. What I would suggest is watch your emails as we get this thing moving forward and actually get a bill number. We will contact you and let you know that it is in fact in play, and we will ask you to pick up the phone and contact your legislator and ask them for support on this. I think that will go a long way to help move this issue forward. It's not something that is unique. As Farouk has said, there are a number of states who have done this. They have done it in varying methods and manners. We've looked at all of them and have tried to design ours after the best of what those states have done. Some report directly to the governor, some report to the legislature. Some of them actually have offices and staffs. We don't do that in Georgia. If we put together a commission, it's got to be a group of volunteers who are doing it, and the staffing would be provided again, as we said, by the Department of Economic Development, but that would be for the purposes of basically providing coordination on meetings and meeting places and the like. So that's what we're looking at. That's what we're going to be trying to do. You have heard a lot about this being a very fast legislative session. I think we're approaching day 17. Brooks, is that correct? We're on day 17. And while the days are ticking very rapidly and moving forward, the legislative pace is really not that fast. There's not a direct correlation. In fact, there are a couple of committees. For instance, the Retirement Committee in the Senate has not had a meeting yet. This session, they'll be meeting next week to handle a few pieces of legislation. So the word that I have gotten is, let's do the business that has to be done. Let's fix those problems that we need to fix, and then let's move on with getting out of here and getting home so that we can raise money and we can be on the ballot for the May 20th primary, which is the earliest primary we have ever seen, so that we can all come back up here next year at this time and have fun once again. With that, I'll sit down. I'll be around for the rest of the day to chat with you and answer any questions any of you would have. Thank you so much for allowing me to help you out, sir.
To Mike Vacher and Farouk Pavel for talking today about a very exciting possibility that we may have a new legislatively created Asian American Commission for Georgia. And one of our honorees today is Josephine Tan, who was the chair of the last appointed Asian American Commission for Georgia under Governor Sonny Perdue. You know, it's really exciting to have so many AAPIs at the Capitol today, and I wanted to be able to introduce Representative Brooks Coleman, District 97, Republican District, and he represents Duluth and many parts of Gwinnett County, and he's really excited to be here today because I know that Gwinnett County is now 13% AAPI, and he's also the chair of the Education Committee in the House, which is tremendously important for his AAPI constituents. So we're very excited to have Brooks Coleman round out part of our legislative briefing. Thank you.
I'm going to come out here with you. How about that? It is good to be here with you today. I appreciate it. I represent Duluth, Swanee, Sugar Hill, and Beaufort. How many people live in those areas? Let me see your hands. Wonderful. You know, I'm so excited to have 57,000 constituents in my district, but 27,000 of my constituents are Asian Americans, which I am proud. Large Korean, I have a lot of different populations, so I'm so excited trying to get in and meet them. But I'm just glad to be here with you. I look forward. I've been down here. Let me tell you, I was a former teacher. Taught 1st grade and 5th grade in Gwinnett County, a former principal, assistant superintendent, director of curriculum. Did it for 32 years. Then I decided I don't like what's going on down at the Capitol. So I decided to run. Got my teachers together, got elected. I've been here 22 years now. It took me a while because I was one of the 33 Republicans at the time, had to wait till we changed houses. I now chair the House Education Committee. Been chairing it now for 7 years and look forward to it. Some exciting things are happening in education. And you know, as I've talked with my Asian American friends that work with me at Hull and Peachtree Ridge that have asked me to meet with them, education is top, #1 on the agenda. Do y'all not agree? #1 on the agenda for everybody. Because good schools build better communities. Build good businesses. People move to an area not for the businesses, not for the jobs, but for the schools. That's what they want to do. So I pledge to you, I want to work with you, I want to support you. It's just exciting to see this one. My daughter's a 1st grade teacher, and I went to visit her class the other day, and it was so beautiful. The cast is so many different colors, and there's a song I loved when I used to learn in Sunday school, red and yellow, black and white. They are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. And that's what our country's becoming. That's what Georgia's becoming. That's what our class is becoming. And it's all those wonderful things we're putting together. And I'm not going to take a lot of time. I want to leave you with a pledge, because I'm going to tell you, go on my website. You can find my phone number. You can find where I am. Contact me. Those are my assistants over there. Find them, call us. And I don't email you. Give me your phone number, because I'm going to call you back. And I'm going to meet with you if you want to meet. I hold a town hall meeting every Saturday morning at the Duluth Rex Hall there in Duluth. I have some meetings up in Swan and Sugar Hill. I'm out there with my people. I want to talk with you. I want to work with you. I'm also a licensed auctioneer. You ought to know that. I do auctions. I do 3 auctions a month. I do fundraisers for schools, and I do fundraisers for charities, and I sell antique clocks. Sometimes I get my speaking and my auctioning mixed up. So if we get going too fast, just holler, sold, and I'll slow down. It's good. But I want to leave you with one thing. I'm convinced that life consists of 5 things to be successful. 5 things to be successful. And I want to leave this with you. Because I think to be successful, to make it in this world, to be a wonderful leader, to be whatever you want to, you got to have these 5 things. The first thing is a good foundation. And I call that good foundation the ABCs of being successful. The A stands for attitude, a positive attitude. People, that is more important than anything else. Upbeat, I can't do. I will do attitude. The B stands for beliefs. You can have a good attitude, but you got to know what you believe in, who you believe in, what you believe, your values, your goals, your mission. You got to have a good one. And the C stands for commitment. You can have a good attitude. You know what you believe in, but you better be committed. Get the education, get the job, make the contacts. You're contacting me today. It's good. Contact your political leaders. That's the foundation you got to have. And there's another C. That's the C of communication. You got to be able to communicate. Go up to them. Hey, hit them face on. Talk to them. Shake their hands. Meet with them. Emails are fine. Hey, Twitter's fine, Facebook's fine, but go find them out, shake the hand, and talk to them. That's the communication. That's one. The second thing, you got to mind your P's and Q's. The P stands for pride, and the Q stands for quality. In your businesses, in your life, have pride, the way you look, the way you act, the way you show yourself. In your businesses, do quality work. Give quality products, and you can be successful. The third thing that's more important is to love technology. Man, I tell you, I'm older, and I'm not used to all this technology, but I'm learning. But I'm going to tell you, you got to learn to love technology, use technology, get excited about technology, but don't abuse it. Don't abuse it. It's important to have it, but use it right in there. And the fourth thing you got to do, and you'll be successful. There's a poem I love so much. It's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, "Go not where the path may lead. Go instead where there's no path, and leave a trail for others to follow." People, to be successful, we've got to start thinking out of the box. We've got to become trailblazers. Blaze new trails. Try new things. Don't be afraid to. You ventured out. You came over here and started a new life. I'm proud of you. We're getting it going, thinking out of the box. And the fifth thing that sums it up, you know, when I used to teach 1st grade, little kids love to dream. And I said, you know, that happiness is the ability to dream a dream. That's happiness. Anytime I lay awake and dream a dream, I'm so happy. But you know what success is? Success is the ability to catch those dreams. You got to be a dream catcher. Catch them. Now that's the 5 things to make you successful. You got it. Now I want to challenge you. Take those 5 things, remember your ABCs, your pride and your quality. Love that technology. Hey, think out of the box. Be trailblazers and dream your dream. Hey, remember Brooks Coleman. Think of Brooks Coleman. Call Brooks Coleman. I want to help you. I appreciate you. Thanks for letting me serve you. Hey, and on Highway 120, we have 14 Asian American churches. Y'all know it, the Korean Presbyterian Church. I love them, man. We're a religious town. Y'all come to us, baby. I love it. Hey, but thank y'all for having me with you. Good to see you. God bless you, and thanks for being in America.
The Georgia Asian American and Pacific Islander Task Force welcomes you to the 2014 Georgia AAPI Legislative Day, and most importantly, Georgia's inaugural Fred Corematsu Day. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Would everybody please rise for the national anthem? And we have Joy Tolentino from Collaboration Atlanta to sing for us.
Sorry?
I wanted to ask one of our honorees today, Ms. Hyunjin Son. She is the Gwinnett County Teacher of the Year, and we're so proud to have recognized her today with the Georgia General Assembly. She will lead our attendees in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, on Monday, going up. Oh my gosh,
what's that?
You're like scrambling to look and they call you. Yeah, everyone's welcome to the luncheon. We're excited that everyone's here. Obviously, it's another historic moment. We're trying to make it bigger and better. We have some amount of people from last year. We had a little bit of a drop off from the snow. We're glad everyone could make it. We're glad everyone's safe. Obviously, the snowstorm last year, maybe it was lots of snow, but everyone's okay. Last week. It's been a week. It's been a long week. Stay safe tonight. Obviously, there's another snow-ish warning. I think they're being overly cautious, but just make sure to get everyone safe. But despite the fact that we had to change our date, I'm glad that everyone's here. Obviously, we have our step and repeat. Make sure to get your pictures taken. And then, and the scarves are pretty momentous. This is the way that we show our solidarity. This is how we show our voice, that we represent we are at the Capitol. We make a difference. And if we vote, we can change the way that election happens. So, glad everyone's here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you guys? And I apologize for the little change of schedule. I have a committee meeting at 1. big issue coming on the table about it's going to hurt about 60,000 people on employment benefits. So I got to be there, fighting for those folks. So I gotta, do the good fight. But I was thinking about, when I was coming this morning, and I've been in Georgia a little over 19 years. Oh, it's going to be next year. It's going to be 20 years that I moved to Georgia with my family. And when 20 years ago, there was not much of an Asian or Latino presence yet. But wow, has changed a lot. Has changed a lot. Now the faces of Georgia really looks like we all. And I commend you for that. In fact, I like to do. It has changed so much that a lot of my business I do it within my district. Thinking about my cleaners is Swan Cleaners, Korean owned. My dentist is Korean dentistry. My eye care is Nukoa Eye Care. So again, it has truly changed, and with having a segue to change, and that's what I want to take an opportunity to honor people that have made some changes that really we can recognize it about stepping up and making sure not just my community, but what I believe and of what I've come from are always present. And again, we're going to call them, and would you please stay over here? That's what you want? Yes. Okay, cool. And this is from the Secretary of State that I asked the Secretary of State to honor this community leaders today. I asked the Secretary Kemp to come, but he's away in Macon. He's been there for the last couple of days, and he regrets not being here. But I wanted to make sure that, we're going to start with, and I'm going to read what the certificate says first. And I'm glad that I don't have to put my glasses. The State of Georgia, Secretary of State, I, Brian P. Kemp, Secretary of State of the State of Georgia, do hereby proclaim Karen Korematsu as an honorary Georgia citizen. May this honorary citizen be afforded every courtesy as a goodwill ambassador from Georgia in her travels to other states, to nations beyond the border of the United States of America, or wherever she may hereafter travel or reside. In testimony whereof I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal of my office at the state capitol in the city of Atlanta this day of February 80. Remember, we did this a couple of days ago. So again, Ms. Korematsu, thank you very much. Would you stay with me here? Okay. Oh yes. Another champion under the community, Dr. Josephine Tan, please. The great work she has done with the Commission on Asian Affairs under Sonny Perdue. Ms. Tan, sure. Thank you. I guess that's the official one, huh? Eugene Sun.
Hutchinson.
Hutchinson. Okay.
Like Wenatchee County Teacher.
Oh, the
Teacher of the Year.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay, beautiful. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay. When Victoria, where's Victoria? Okay, beautiful. Victoria? Sure. It's know which one. All right. Next. Ms. Amna Shirasi. Amna, come over here, please. One of the top immigration attorneys in the state of Georgia. So Amna, thank you for being a changer and a community leader. And all right, that's it. Thank you very much. And before, let's do yes. Here, hold that. How about you guys stay in the middle? The Pedro Stadiums. The Pedro Stadiums.
Actually, I wanted to be able to recognize, yes, I wanted to also be able to recognize Dr. M. Yassine Abubakar. He actually already previously received an Outstanding Citizenship Certificate of Georgia. So Farouk said, well, he doesn't need one. But we already know he's an outstanding citizen. But if you wouldn't mind joining us up today, because he was one of the special honorees as well. Dr. Abubakar? I'm sorry, if he already had to leave then. And we also were recognizing Officer Deepa Patel, our first Indian American female peace officer, but she has already left after this morning's.
Enjoy lunch, but this is it's an election year. Okay, I want to throw that out, and it's an election year, and we have to make sure that our communities have a seat at the table, that our representatives. How we do that? We go back to our communities and we encourage our communities to register to vote and to exercise that right that we have to voting. Okay, Democrat, Republican, Independent. You know, what we need to do is make sure that our communities enforce it. Those people across the street at the Capitol won't pay attention until when? They won't pay attention until we have what? Political power. And how we do with the political power, we make sure that our communities register to vote and exercise that right, and we vote. So again, thank you very much for being here, and God bless you all.
For the tremendous support. We also want to thank our community partners.
Korean descent. Her parents emigrated to the United States in the early 70s, both from Daegu. They met in New York City, and then they moved to Reidsville, Georgia, and have been there ever since. And so my father-in-law has been a town doctor in Reidsville for 40 years, and that's where my wife calls home. And so we took the family to Korea last year, and it was just a wonderful experience. We went to Daegu, Busan, and Seoul. So, annyeonghaseyo, and I'm very, very proud of this community, and the relationship between the United States and Asia is changing, and it's changing right now, and it's changing in a very positive way. There is, within foreign policy circles, a deliberate move towards Asia. The word used to be pivot, and now it's more rebalance, from the United States focusing more on Europe, to now the United States is focusing more on Asia. And so I hope that we continue to develop those relationships, to build our economic trade, and I'm a strong proponent of free trade between the United States and Asia, and hope that we make further ground on that regard. But thank you for all that you do. If there's anything that I can do to be helpful, please don't hesitate to let me know. And I represent District 81, which is unincorporated DeKalb County by the North Lake Mall. I also represent part of Chamblee, Dorable, Brookhaven, and then along Buford Highway into Gwinnett County. So thank you again for letting me join you today.
Thank you very much. My name is Don Parsons. I'm a state representative from North Central Cobb County. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for even giving us the opportunity to come over today. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you. Appreciate what you do in our communities. And you know, this country is a, I think I heard somebody describe it one time as a tapestry. And it's a, you know, bringing in all the different cultures, and that's what makes this country strong, really, because it is a tapestry of different cultures that are brought together. And I appreciate the work that you do. I appreciate what you bring to our communities. And thank you very much for being here today. It's great to see you. And appreciate us all being Americans. God bless America. Thank you.
Representative Harrell, and then Mayor Ted Terry. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm Brett Harrell, State Representative from District 106 in Gwinnett County, South Gwinnett. Woo! Which includes parts of Snellville, Loganville, Grayson, and Lawrenceville. And it's my great honor to be one of the sponsors of the resolution years ago for Mr. Korematsu, and it's wonderful to do that. My district joins Representative B.J. Pack, who he and I have been friends for over a decade, and we live in a very diverse and growing community. And as Representative Parsons says, new business in our community, new churches, new nonprofit organizations, and people being involved in the communities that we live is what makes us a strong nation. So I do appreciate the invitation to come over and visit with you today for a few minutes, and appreciate your attendance at the Capitol this morning. I hope you had a great day, and I enjoyed meeting many of you. Hope you have an opportunity to speak with your representatives and come back and stay engaged and stay involved. Thank you again for having me.
And I hope I'm not missing anybody, but I'd like to invite Mayor Ted Terry of the City of Clarkston. You know, it's really quite amazing. The City of Clarkston had not just one, but two immigrant Americans running for City Council. They included Narendra Dakal, who is Bhutanese American, which is really amazing to have, a refugee population that has moved to Clarkston and really started to take ownership. And I believe we also had an Ethiopian American gentleman running for City Council. And while they didn't win this cycle, that doesn't mean they're not going to run again for the next cycle, because we are growing, and AAPIs really need to be able to step up and represent our populations. So, Mayor Ted Terry.
That's exactly right. Narendra Dakal did run for City Council. He was from Bhutan. Hello, my name is Ted Terry. I'm the new mayor of Clarkston, just sworn in 30 days ago. And we actually have one of our chairmen of our Planning and Zoning Commission here, Mr. Ben Glover. Thank you for being here, Ben. And actually, even though Narendra, who is a good friend of mine and teaches citizenship classes for the new Bhutanese refugees, who come in every year. Even though he lost that election by 17 votes, we've kept him involved, and he's actually just joined the Planning and Zoning Committee with Mr. Glover as chairman just on Tuesday night. So he'll be appointed to a 4-year term to be involved in the future development and economy of the city of Clarkston. We are known as the most ethnically diverse square mile in America, 40 different nationalities and 60 different languages in our 1.1 square mile circle of the city. Clarkston was founded in 1882 and was very much a sleepy town for 120 years until, as a result of the Refugee Act of 1980, we began to receive a huge number of refugees from Indochina after the fall of South Vietnam government. And so the first refugees that came to Clarkston were from Vietnam. And we've continued to engage that population. I actually was invited to a Baptist church, a Vietnamese Baptist church celebration on Sunday, as well as a celebration of the New Year, the Year of the Horse, 2014. And that was a lot of fun and excitement. And it's very important to me that we continue to engage and embrace diversity of cultures and ethnicity. It's important not only for compassionate reasons, but also for our economic reasons. We believe that the city of Clarkston is stronger because we have embraced these many different cultures. And so I very much appreciate being here today, and I will wear this scarf proudly the rest of the day. Thank you.
Again, I just wanted to point out, I forgot to mention Ben Glover, who's Vietnamese American and serving on the Planning and Zoning Committee in the city of Clarkston. It's really quite amazing, from a Vietnamese refugee population to serving as chair of the Planning and Zoning Department. I did also want to briefly acknowledge the judges that we have here today. And although Judge Carla Wong-McMillan is going to be introducing Karen Korematsu, I'd like her to be able to stand and be recognized. And also, U.S. Magistrate Judge Justin Anand. And our first Filipina-American judge in Georgia, Judge Risa Palmares O'Connor. And it's really quite amazing. These judges are all firsts. We have our first APA female judge, Court of Appeals of Georgia. We have our first Indian-American U.S. Magistrate Judge of Georgia. Our first Filipina-American Chief Magistrate Judge of Toombs County. But the thing is, these are just the firsts. They are not the lasts, correct? So we need to start stepping up and voting. Our votes do matter. When we have API elected officials from Toombs County. You know, we have Donna Paul, who's the Forsyth County Solicitor General, just appointed last year by Governor Nathan Deal. We have Solicitor General Jamie Inagawa in Fayette County, Georgia. These are not typically, you know, high API population counties, but it really is amazing that in Georgia we have that today.
Yes, Bonnie, the task force members, friends, volunteers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor of Georgia Power to be part of this Asian American community, especially this Legislative Day. Because Asian Americans, we have done so much in the economic side, in other side, and politically we do need to even make more effort to have more impact. So Georgia Power is proud to be part of you, and Georgia Power, we have the nuclear power plant will be using in 2016, and I hope that's bring you even more clean air and good energy. And I was born in Taipei, and the Taipei Economic Cultural Office Director General Dai, can you stand up? And I want you to just say hello, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to take this opportunity to commend Justin Town for his efforts and contributions to the Asian American communities. My office is Economic Cultural Office in Atlanta. My working areas are apart from Georgia, including Alabama, Kentucky, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee. So in the future, if my office can be of service in any way, you're more than welcome to contact me. This office functionally is the Consular General. We issue visas, passports to promote relations with the 6 southeastern states. Between relations, anyway, we try to promote or strengthen the ties in terms of investment and trade between the 6 southeastern states and Taiwan. So anyway, if my office can be of service in any way to you in the future, please do not hesitate to let me know. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.
I allowed the Director General of TICO to come up. I know I also have to invite the Consul General, Deputy Consul General of Japan and of Korea as well. So if you wanted to just say a few words, we welcome you to come up and say a few words in the spirit of parity.
It's an honor to be here. I just want to thank the board, in particular, I want to thank General Assembly and State Representative and Jack officers, and also government for honoring Asian community people in the South Korea. I'm so happy to be here to educate mobile speakers of Asian community. I've been here about for 10.5 years as a consul general. I'm so much proud of being representative of the community. I'm confident that the community will continue to be important and secure part of the communities of the state. And also, as a consul general, I hope I'll be able to work with all Asian communities to forward the bilateral relationship. Thank you so much.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kakori. I just recently arrived from my former post in India. I came here just 10 days ago, so I'm very new here. Looking for working with you. Our office, in a way, represents the Japanese community here in Atlanta and then southern states. But the Japanese community, the involvement in Georgia is probably a little bit different from other countries because of that. Our Japanese nationals seems to have been merged into American community already. We have long generations here. Last night I met about 5 or 6 Japanese Americans here. But they are 4th generation of different generations. It seems that the number of Japanese American community seems to be very small. they said that they all the group about and then potential idea about 300. However, there are over 7,000 Japanese businessmen. So Japanese communication relation to this state or region could be from the those who are working here, not actually resided in this country. Anyway, our job at the Constitutional Office of Japan is to promote good relations with Japan and state of Georgia, and I'm very much looking forward to working with you on these activities. Thank you.
First, Miss UPS.
Follow all the consul generals now. But on behalf of that, also I talked to Ray Donato, who's our Filipino consul general. He extends his greetings to everyone. He can't make it today, but he really wanted to come. So I'm Estrella Kramer. I'm from UPS, and it's always been an honor for UPS to really support organizations such as the API Task Force. I'm in one of their planning committee, so that's what I really enjoy, more than giving them the check, right? It's like an extended family. But so I've been with UPS now for, this is my 25th year with them, and thank you. And one thing that doesn't really change is their undying support of a lot of organizations. They're very generous, not only with their checkbook, but also with their employees' time to make sure that they get involved in the community. So enjoy the day.
Hi, my name is Ann Ashley, and I will keep it short. And just say the South is rising. Let's shine.
Well, Bonnie did twist my arm, but she basically told me I have to do this. So when she calls, you know, you do what Bonnie says. But we're so happy that she did say to do this because when you showed up to the event today, it's such a wonderful event. We're hoping to sponsor it again. Yeah, she'll hold me to that, I know. And I can tell you this, is that Armin Global Search, a company that we formed over 3 years ago, is been very active in the Asian community because we enjoy it. We've been very receptive to needs, and we recruit on all levels of lawyers, paralegals, and so some people I've worked with in this room, some people I hope to work with in this room, but please just keep coming to the different events because this is the only way we can make a difference is to come to the different events, whether it's Legislative Day or another event that might come up in the future. Thank you, Bonnie, for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. We'll be taking a photo at the step and repeat banner. Thank you. Now, I know everybody's been waiting to listen to Karen Korematsu speak. And to introduce Karen, we have Judge Carla Wong McMillan. I remember the first time I met Judge Carla, and I was just so amazed that we had an APA female judge here in Georgia. And she was first appointed to the State Court of Fayette County by Governor Sonny Perdue, and then she ran for re-election. It was a contested election, and she won. Clearly, hands down, she won. And then Governor Nathan Deal elevated her earlier last year to the Court of Appeals of Georgia. So it's really, she's one of my role models. I mean, to be an APA judge, female judge here in Georgia, it's really quite an honor to have her here today. So Judge Carla Wong McMillan, thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie, for those kind words. And I just want to say, it is just such a tremendous honor here today to be able to introduce our speaker. As an Asian American lawyer and judge, the name Fred Korematsu has special meaning for me, and his story is both horrifying and inspiring. The story of a man who courageously stood up to racial injustice, only to be ultimately denied his basic constitutional rights by the highest court in this land. A story that begins with Fred Korematsu being branded by his country as a criminal, and ends with his country celebrating him as one of its greatest heroes by awarding him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, an ordinary citizen who made an extraordinary difference. As a judge, the decision of the United States Supreme Court in Korematsu versus the United States both saddens me and serves as a cautionary tale as I carry out my own duties. I ask myself, how could 6 justices of our Supreme Court, including some of the most respected names in American jurisprudence, give constitutional blessing to a blatantly racist policy that forced American citizens of Japanese descent into internment camps simply on account of their ancestry? In reading the opinion this week, I note that in dissent, Justice Robert Jackson wrote about the complete lack of foundation for treating Mr. Korematsu as a criminal. And he wrote, and very eloquently, I might add, Korematsu was born on our soil, a parent born in Japan. The Constitution makes him a citizen of the United States by nativity and a citizen of California by residence. No claim is made that he is not loyal to this country. There is no suggestion that, apart from the matter involved here, he is not a law-abiding and well-disposed citizen. Korematsu, however, has been convicted of an act not commonly a crime. It consists merely of being present in the state whereof he is a citizen, near the place where he was born and where all his life he has lived. Now, despite this obvious injustice, when Fred Korematsu went before the highest court of this land to vindicate his constitutional rights, the judiciary failed him, and by extension, it failed all of us. The failure of this court in this key moment highlights the danger when judges allow their prejudice and popular passions to trump the clear application of the rule of law. The law is the great equalizer in American life. No one is so great that that he or she is above the law, and no one is so low that they can't avail themselves of the law's protections. All of us are equal stakeholders. This unifying feature of the law only works, however, when judges do their part to follow that which the Constitution demands. The lesson of Korematsu versus the United States, for those of us who wear the black robes, is to vigilantly safeguard constitutional rights in times of crisis. Now, it would be folly for me to think that I'm somehow immune to the same pressures that caused the majority in Korematsu to deny an American citizen's clear constitutional rights. But by studying history, we can learn from it. The story of Fred Korematsu reminds us as Americans, and me as a judge, that the Constitution's guarantees of due process and equal protection are not matters of convenience easily discarded. Rather, they are essential safeguards of our liberty and that keep us all free. And internalizing that lesson, we can avoid the mistakes of our past. Now, this journey toward equality is an ongoing one. And Karen Korematsu continues her father's legacy by serving on the front lines as a civil rights advocate. She currently serves as the executive director of the Fred Korematsu Institute for Civil Rights and Education, an organization that she co-founded in 2009. The Korematsu Institute promotes civil rights through education, teaching the next generation about Fred Korematsu's fight for justice, the story of his Japanese-American internment during World War II, Asian American history, and current civil rights issues. Now, one of Karen's most significant accomplishments is the establishment in perpetuity of January 30th as Fred Korematsu Day in the state of California. This commemoration marks the first time in American history that an Asian American has been honored with a statewide day. Another testament to Fred Korematsu's enormous impact not only on Asian Americans, but all Americans. I'm proud that the governors of Utah and Hawaii each proclaimed January 30th, 2013 as Fred Korematsu Day in their own states, and I'm also proud that Georgia has followed suit. Now, Karen gives that committee other ways. She serves on many corporate boards, including the Asian Law Caucus, Asian American Justice Center, and the Fred T. Korematsu Center for Law and Equality at Seattle University School of Law. Now, the common theme of this service is consistent with her father's legacy, is ensuring that the scales of justice apply equally to all, regardless of race or position. As a part of her mission to create a better future by educating others about the past, Karen is a tireless speaker who delivers speeches across the country to K-12 public and private schools, colleges and universities, law schools, courts, and many other organizations. We are truly privileged to have her with us today, and I'm going to ask that you show off our Southern hospitality by giving her a warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, today's keynote speaker, Corema츠.
Thank you, Judge McMillan, for that kind and generous introduction. It is encouraging to also see a brilliant Asian American woman on the bench and other rising stars. You know, we really need to encourage our representation in the courts, and we all need to do our part to increase that. Also, I want to thank the Georgia Asian American Disciplinary Task Force for making it possible for me to be a part of this Fred Corema츠 Day celebration. When I learned that your snowstorm had shut down your city and all the day's activities for January 30th, my heart just sank. I called my new awesome friend, Bonnie, and we decided that I could come and join you today. So I'm sorry that you all had to go through such a weather disaster. However, as all things centered around Fred Corema츠, the stars lined up. I'm so excited to be part of this auspicious occasion. I know from experience what it takes to plan for a day's program like this, but to do it twice within a week is unbelievable. Thank you to Bonnie and your amazing team of volunteers. I would like to dedicate this speech to, to my mother, and of course my father. But my mother passed away just recently at the end of October. And she was 92. And she was a great supporter and champion for my father. They made a great team. And even though my father passed away about 9 years ago, my mother, you know, continued to be a part of the community and to show up with me, you know, whenever she could. But as far as an affiliation to the South, it's less than 6 degrees because my mother was born in Greenville, South Carolina, a Southern belle. Thank you. She went to college there, and then got a scholarship to Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan, and continued on with her master's in microbiology. And it was there that she met my father. She belonged to the Woodward Avenue Presbyterian Church, and they had a international group. Towards the end of the war, now they had the government, in its wisdom, knew that the war was going to be over, World War II, and they thought, well, what are we going to do with 120,000 people? So community leaders went in to help people get jobs. Now you could go east before the end of the war, but not west. So when I was growing up, I would meet other Japanese Americans and ask where they were from, or were born. They would say Wisconsin or Minnesota. It's cold. I mean, I thought it was cold here, but it was cold there. You know, how did you get there? And so then that's when I started learning this story. And when my father left the camp, even though he had, you know, he was guilty, he had a federal conviction, he was able to get work first in Salt Lake City, and he worked in a welding shop because that's what he did before the war. But then when he found out that he was getting paid less than everyone else because he was Japanese American, he protested. He said, "No, this isn't right." And then there was some his other Japanese American friends were there as well, and they went to the owner of the shop and complained, and the shop owner said, "Well, I'm just going to send you back to camp. You know, you can't complain." And my father said, well, yes, we can complain, and left. He left that job and then found another one, and made his way to Detroit to see his brother first. And that's where he met my mother. My mother had met her first Japanese-American friend in Detroit, Michigan, Elma Takahashi. And together, I thought this was very interesting, they put their money together to subscribe to the Pacific Citizen, which is the newspaper of the Japanese-American Citizens League. So my mother already knew about my father before they even met, which was really quite interesting. And so they decided to get married, but because my mother was from South Carolina, they couldn't go to South Carolina to get married because of the anti-racial marriage laws there, nor could they go to California because those laws didn't change until 1948, and they got married in 1946. They decided, my father didn't like the cold weather. Now I understand why. And they eventually went back to California. My grandmother wasn't well. And so my brother and I were born in Oakland, California, in the Bay Area, and grew up there. Now, fast forward to when I'm a junior in high school, and I'm in social studies class, learning about American history. And the social studies teacher assigned like a little paperback book for, they were all different. We didn't know what the book was about, but they were American history related. And I don't remember what my book was about. And my friend Maya Okada, who is third generation Japanese American, got up in front of the class to give her oral book report. And it was called Concentration Camps USA. And she's talking about the Japanese American concentration camps. Oh, I said to myself, that's interesting. What's that about? And then she said, well, there was this one man who disobeyed the military orders, and it ended up to be a landmark Supreme Court case, Korematsu versus the United States. Oh, that's my name. And I went to a high school of 2,500 kids, and there were only 6 Asian Americans in the whole school. So I've got 35 pairs of eyes turning around looking at me, and I'm, I was a black sheep of the family. And only thing I knew was that Korematsu is an unusual Japanese name. So I said to my friend Maya afterwards, well, what's this about? And she said, well, I think this is about your father. I said, no, somebody would have told me. So I go home and confront my mother, and I could jump up and down and say, well, what's this about? And get all excited. And then I got the typical answer, back then in the 60s, well, wait till your father gets home. And you talk to him. And he had experienced employment discrimination, worked several jobs sometimes, long hours. We even had, he had experienced even housing discrimination. None of this my brother and I knew about. And so when he got home, I was a little bit calmer, and then I asked him about this, and he said just simply, it happened a long time ago, and what he felt like he did was right, and the government was wrong. And it was that clear and simple in his mind. And the only thing that I could think of to ask him was, well, can you vote? And he said yes, he could vote. Because I didn't know what it meant to have a criminal record, right, a criminal prison record. A couple of years later, though, I learned what that meant, because my father, because he'd had housing discrimination, wanted to be a real estate agent. He wanted to help other people who had had housing issues, buy a house. That was a big thing for my father. So he went to junior college and took the course, passed the test with flying colors, then you get the form, and then you fill out the form, and at the bottom says, well, do you have a criminal record? And he had to say yes. So then he was denied his real estate license, and that really, really hurt him. He was just so deeply affected by that. But he was a person that had always been involved in the community. I mean, growing up, he was involved in Boy Scouts and helping us with Girl Scouts and with church, and was in the Lions Club, International Lions Club, for 48 years, was president twice. So he's always given back to his community. The irony, though, to my story of learning about my father in high school is I have a younger brother, 4 years younger. His name is Ken, and he learned the same way about my father in high school. So obviously, we did not have a lot of dinner talk. But when I got a couple of years after that, I didn't, I was kind of afraid to ask my father any more questions because I could just see the pain and it hurt in his eyes. And later on, I asked him, and he thought maybe perhaps, that my brother and I might be ashamed of him. And so he wanted to wait for us to get a little older so he might understand. And of course, that was never the case. But he was asked to talk to a UC Berkeley Asian Studies class, which back in those days, in the late 60s, was off campus. I mean, they didn't even allow Asian American Studies on campus. And the students were just kind of a little bit too harsh, I think. Why didn't you fight and protest and yell and scream and, that sort of kind of activism as, think about UC Berkeley. That was kind of, the time. But my father, he was never angry. He was never bitter. He didn't blame anybody. He just was waiting for his time. And so fast forward, 1982, really, and Professor Peter Irons writes a letter to my father to say that he wants to talk to my father. He was writing a book, and my father thought, oh yeah, here's another one, wants to write a book. And, but he had some evidence. He wanted to talk to my father. So he gave, he had my father's address and our address, and so they set up an appointment. Unfortunately, I was traveling a lot, and my mother had to go pick me up from the airport. I was trying to get back home in time, thinking, I've got to protect my father. What's this about? And so unfortunately, my plane was late, so we were just arriving as Professor Irons was leaving. But he had a tape recorder, my father had a tape recorder, so we could kind of hear the discussion. But to learn that that he had uncovered the evidence of government misconduct that would allow my father's case to be reopened was unbelievable. And until that time, I did not know that my father, deep down inside, had always been looking for someone to help him reopen his case. But he didn't know how to do that because, attorneys cost a lot of money. And he didn't know any attorneys. But he just always had that deep-seated belief. So, if you really believe that you are right and what you want for not only for yourself but this country is going to make a big difference. That's the story of Fred Korematsu, of one person who can make a difference. So then we met this young legal team, and Dale Manami, who was my father's lead counsel, was here, last Thursday. Unfortunately, some of you may have been able to hear him at the dinner in the evening. But all these young people, as my father said, look like high school kids. And my father said to Peter Irons, who's got the gray hair, do you think these young people know what they're doing? Because that was really the big question. Could these young attorneys handle Korematsu versus the United States all over again? If they lost, that would be a big deal, not only for their own families, but for what this would mean for future generations. So it was a big risk. But the community, the Japanese community, was not supportive once they kind of started learning what was going on. They thought if my father reopened his Supreme Court case, that they would lose the chance for redress and reparations, is what they were after. And it was the same story from the time that my father took a stand in 1942 to disobey the military orders. His own Japanese American community did not support him. He was vilified from day one. They didn't want anything to do with him because they thought if they associated with my father, some harm might come to them, that it would ruin their chances. And so my father just went it alone, always. And for him not to have a grudge really says something about his integrity. He lived by his principles. And not everyone can say that they live by their principles, but he truly did. So when his case was overturned, in 1983, he had done this not only for himself, for his Japanese American community, but for future generations. And this weight not only lifted off his shoulders, but all those other people that had been incarcerated, because they had walked around in shame all those years. No one really talked about their experiences during the Japanese American incarceration, because after they got out of camp, they just wanted to go forward and prove they were good Americans. They wanted to give back to the community, raise their families, work hard. That's what this American dream is about. And they really, had not talked about this or shared their experiences because it was just too painful. So I did not know that I wasn't the only one. Because growing up, my brother and I were not part of the Japanese American community. And when his case, my father's case was overturned, he could have said, okay, none of you ever supported me, none of the Japanese American community supported me, but he wasn't like that. And he was shy, but fortunately the Corps of Novus team encouraged him to speak up. And he realized that education was important. That in order for something like the Japanese American internment not to happen again, he kept speaking out. So that's why he crisscrossed the United States and spoke to whomever invited him. And he really wanted to make a difference, and that's why he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Can I tell one quick story? Is my time up? We get this call, and it's December 1997, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning, about the middle of the month, and my father was kind of semi-retired, and the phone rings, and my father usually never answered the phone. So he answered the phone, and on the other end of the line was, Mr. Korematsu. Yes. Well, Mr. Korematsu, this is the White House. Okay. Well, Mr. Korematsu, are you well? Well, they just woke him up. I'm okay. Well, Mr. Korematsu, President Clinton would like to give you the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Okay. Mr. Korematsu, can you come to the White House on January 15th of next month to receive this honor? I don't know. You'll have to speak to my wife. Who is the suspicious type and grills this guy for like an hour. And then the aide says, well, we'll call back and give you some other information, and you can look into your flights. And so he calls back, or another aide calls back and says, well, Mrs. Korematsu, have you made your flights, bought your airline tickets, and your hotel reservations? Well, aren't you at least going to be sending a ticket for my husband? No, Mrs. Korematsu, you all have to make your own arrangements. So the lesson is, as I talk to high school students, if you want the Presidential Medal of Freedom, then you better start saving your pennies. But my father said, in his practical way, once he had this discussion with my mother, that it was very expensive. My father was retired, he never had a pension, they were just kind of living hand to mouth. And so my father told my mother, well, just call the White House back and tell the president to send the medal to me in the mail. We can't afford to get there. True story. So, it's really an honor to be here, and thank you all for standing up for what is right. And remember my father's words. When you see something wrong, don't be afraid to speak up. Thank you.
I wanted to call up to the stage Representative B.J. Pack. Representative Pack is my representative And he's the first Korean American elected to our Georgia General Assembly. And as Dale Minami said here last week, it is truly historic that a Korean American has decided to put forth a resolution honoring Fred Korematsu, a Japanese American, here in the Deep South, where the history of segregation really runs deep. And to me, it really means a lot, because it's not just saying we're Korean American or we're Japanese American. We're American. We're all Fred Korematsu. So BJ.
Karen, thank you so much for coming. That was a wonderful speech. And in recognition of your dedication to civil rights for all Americans, the task force has like to award you a little award, mementos for this week, recognizing Georgia's inaugural Fred Korematsu Day, February 6, 2014. Karen Korematsu, keynote speaker. And also, this is actually a copy of the resolution that was adopted by the House of Representatives on January 24th. See, I was prepared for the storm. I had it done, and great work for getting everything rescheduled. And I told Bonnie when she told me that Karen was going to come, and I said, well, that kind of worked out great. So here's a copy of the resolution.
Thank
something
you.
to honor your father.
Oh, thank you. It's just beautiful. Thank you.
Let me say a few words. I'm sorry, I know a lot of the legislators have to go in and out. As you can imagine, 2 days of legislative days shutting down in the short, truncated session. We have multiple meetings scheduled, so I apologize. I have to leave after this. But I saw the quote here, and it really struck me. Don't be afraid to speak up. And as Asian Americans, you know that culturally we've kind of been programmed not to speak up, to respect elders and things like that. I happen to be an exception, as you can tell. Hence I'm a politician. But I never thought when I moved down to Georgia, some 18 years ago, when we didn't have anyone except for Judge Wong, Al Wong, who's serving on the bench. And I look over here and I see not just Carla Wong Macmillan, Judge, and also Justin Anand, both of them are dear friends of mine, leading and being trailblazers for the rest of us. One thing I would like to point out is it's not really about honoring Fred Korematsu today. If you think about it, it's actually about inspiring future Fred Korematsu. And when I really look out here, and I hope one day that we don't have to say ourselves that we're Asian American anymore, and we're not going to be able to make any distinction. Now, one thing I will tell you a story. When I first introduced the resolution last year honoring Fred Korematsu, in the House of Representatives, remember, we're at the home of Martin Luther King. You'd be surprised, not a single African American member of the House knew too much about Fred Korematsu. So my job is really not to just merely not honor folks, but my job is to educate. And that's the legacy that we need to leave to honor Fred Korematsu. So I urge you to keep blazing that path. I expect Judge Wong and Judge Macmillan to not get too comfortable where they are, because I hope they move up fast and blaze the trail for the rest of us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And again, thank all of you for being here. I'm very privileged today to introduce an individual that I call a friend. He is a senator who resides in Decatur, represents DeKalb County and part of Atlanta, part of the city of Atlanta as well. He's a ninth generation Georgian who comes from a family that has quite a political legacy. He's a graduate of Duke, a graduate of UGA Law, a former Peace Corps worker in Africa, and a member of the Broderick Law Firm, and a candidate who one day will be governor of the state of Georgia, Senator Dixon.
Thank you very much. I see my friend BJ Ash here. It's great, as he mentioned, to see Judge Wong and Judge McMillan and Judge Anand, who, at least two of whom live in my Senate district. So I have a very big responsibility in that regard. They're very troublesome districts. I also wanted to acknowledge the members of the consular community. I just finished chairing the Strategic Planning Initiative at the Carter Center, which is here in Atlanta, and the consular community has always been very, very supportive of us, and I know that Consulate Hae-Boom Kim from South Korea is here, Director General Stephen Tai is here, and Deputy Consul General Yasutaka Sabori is here, and I wanted to acknowledge them and thank you all for being here. And I also listened with great pleasure to Karen Korematsu, and I don't have, I'll say it this way, carrying on a legacy like you have is not something that I understand, but I do understand what it means to carry on a big legacy. And one of the remarkable things about your story, about your father getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and just remaining the very same person you always was, I can tell you, my grandfather, as Mike alluded to, was the governor of Georgia, was president of the United States, and won the Nobel Peace Prize, among other things, but he has stayed that same guy too. And if you go to his house and you want to use the microwave, it ticks down. I mean, they're just regular people. And I really appreciate the ability to be here for that. My message is very brief, and it's important. We live today let's think about it this way. You mentioned that Asian Studies at Berkeley was off campus. Anyone who set foot on Berkeley's campus today would find that completely shocking. Right? I mean, the impact that we have as a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial community in a global economy are just the facts. That's how we operate. My children are 7 and 5. They will never know another world than the world that operates in that same way. And I think Georgia has that ability to be a welcoming, open-armed, open-hearted community for all different kinds of people. And the business community understands that. The business community and the business leaders, many of whom are in this room, they know that. And I think that it's something that this legislature and that the state government can do a much better job of expressing and understanding. That's something that I strive to do, and I'm really, really excited that this group is here at your Capitol to raise awareness of these issues and to let people get to know and see what our state is and what it should be. So the last thing I'll mention, and I don't know if you want me to take questions. I'm happy to take questions on any issue if you'd like, but I'm also happy to step off the stage and let everybody go back to their peach pudding or whatever it is. But I'll say this. Karen mentioned one other thing, and BJ said it also, and it's about educating people, and about people. That is on some level the key to understanding. And when I was in South Africa in the Peace Corps, I was working in schools. Nelson Mandela was still the president, and they had it should have been at that moment in history the most divided country you can imagine. There's 14 different languages. The town where I stayed, a village, people carried their water from the river. They built their houses out of sticks and mud. And 3 hours away, you could go to a building like this and go to Starbucks and live in a first world country that was essentially white dominated. And where I lived, everyone was black except for me for about 30 miles. And yet, the women would stand on the side of the roads with wood on their heads to carry back to their house to build fires to cook. And white people would pass in Mercedes on the main highway and they'd wait for the cars to go by and keep going. But they all felt like they were still a part of this country that had this national purpose. And you would talk to people in Zulu or whatever, and they would say, yeah, this is one nation now. And that idea, that faith in the value of their common pursuits was something that came from, I think, the leadership of that community at that time. And Mandela was like that. And in this country, where for the most part, people come from all over, but they're much more closely aligned than they would have been in South Africa. We've lost some of that idea that we have a single national common purpose, and it's something I think we can re-achieve. But the way that we get there, education to me is the answer to that, and it's where we all have this idea of the American dream, that you can be better than your parents and move forward and move up in the world and become prosperous, productive, successful, exciting people. But the place where that goes, and the place where the place that decides whether that dream is still alive or not, is the education system that we have. And that's where I have been focusing. I know others have focused there too, but that's really the centerpiece of where I believe Georgia has to go. And that's what you'll hear from me over the next many months. And that's what I've been working on since I've been in the state senate. But that education, the component of it that's about getting to understand other people and their heritage and where folks come from and where we're all going together, is an important one. But it's also important to do and invest appropriately in our education system. So that's my focus here. But I would love, if it's okay with you, to answer questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to, if I can do one or two.
You can take one or two questions.
All right, I'll take one or two questions if anyone has. But if you don't, it's also okay.
I guess you just spoke about like elementary education and children's education, but I think a lot of the barrier for single women or for single mothers to get ahead is that they don't have child care that's affordable. And so do you have any ideas that would help these women further their education without compromising their children?
Did everyone hear the question? The question is about how to ensure that we have child care for a lot of women who want to get an education to further themselves. There's a couple of things that I'd like to say about that, if I could. One is that when you invest in early childhood education like pre-K, when you provide high quality care for young children, especially in rural areas, you'll see the unemployment rate go down because women go back to work and they start to go and get skills in a variety of ways. There's so much evidence that shows that investing early in education, and especially for young children, is some of the best dollars that the state government can spend, because the impact on the family is large, the impact on the child's educational outcomes is gigantic, and it's just good policy. We don't spend a dime of our general fund budget on pre-K in Georgia. We rely on the lottery to fund pre-K, which to me doesn't make sense. So we could do more with respect to pre-K, and that for a lot of women would provide some of that. The other thing that's incredibly important is in technical school and other places to make sure that we can create a technical school environment or a higher education environment and an adult education environment that allows for the actual facts on the ground that people are confronting when they come into this. And one of the biggest tragedies of the last several years with respect to our education system is a change that was made to what they call a HOPE grant, which is for technical college students. And we changed the HOPE grant several years ago. I fought it, of course, or I wouldn't be talking about it. But we knew it was going to be a disaster. And we lost in 1 year 45,000 technical college students who had to leave technical school. Our technical school enrollment went from 195,000 to 150,000. And so that gigantic drop in the number of technical college students was because we didn't understand, or the current leadership didn't understand, the reality of those folks' lives. They're going to technical college because they want to get ahead, they want to better themselves, etc., but they've got families, they've got real economic issues that they have to address, and 45,000 students left the technical college system. And that's not just bad for those families, it's an economic disaster waiting to happen for the rest of us, because we have to have a workforce that we can push forward into a global economy. Those technical colleges are the places where people have a fast track to jobs. And if you'll allow me, one of my friends and co-workers is a man named Andre Washington, who's here in the back. He was the president of the student body in Morehouse a few years ago. But part of the reason he's where he was is because his mom got a HOPE grant and went to become a licensed practical nurse. And so it doesn't just change the world for her, but it changed the world for her family. and then he gets to go change the world for all the rest of us. You know, so the way that education ripples out is gigantic, and considering all of the things that go along with what a student needs, including childcare, is one of the most important aspects. I appreciate the question.
Jessica, so I just want to have an honest conversation around this. It's been a long time where we're kind of divided between two Georgias, you know, the Atlanta, Georgia, and the Georgia, Georgia. And 10 days ago was a prime example of who's at fault and who's to blame. What are your top 3 things you want to do to kind of divide this chaotic mindset and bring people at the center and unison?
Well, when you say the Georgia, I assume you're saying it's sort of like rural Georgia. Rural. Okay.
Anything else over Atlanta, Georgia?
Right. You've got Atlanta and you've got Georgia. That's the question, right? I got you. And I think that's a good question. We've been confronting that for decades, right? And so, you know, that was one of the big issues when my grandfather was the governor, you know, 45 years ago. And so here's what's going on now. There's several things that bring us all together. One of them is an education system that works for everyone. If you go talk about what people in rural Georgia care about, they care about the exact same things that people care about in Norcross, in downtown Atlanta, and elsewhere. And that is making sure that their kids have a chance to compete in the global economy, that they're a little bit uncertain about what it looks like. That's what folks want. And so one thing that can bring people together is investing in our education system. The other thing that we saw yesterday last week, is that we've got this giant number of local governments. We've got all of these folks around, and I have to recognize an elected official as soon as I said local government. Mayor Ted Terry from Clarkston is here, who's a friend of mine. But you know, some folks like Ted, you know, he represents a city that's 1 mile in diameter, and we've got 159 counties. But what we need in that context, and we've got communities within those counties that, you know, I think there's 60 municipalities in the metro area. The example of last week is that, you know, when you've got that many cooks in the kitchen, it's hard to move forward together. And so we have to have a strong leader at the head of the state in order to bring folks together. My family's from rural Georgia. My father graduated from Plains High School. My mom and I are originally from Calhoun, Georgia, but I live in Atlanta. And that's like a lot of other folks, you know. I mean, people move in, they move out, but we have to have a viable economy in rural Georgia. We have to focus on an education system that works for everybody, and we have to recognize that in order to get folks together, we've got to have people that are willing to stand up and do that. And what happened last week is a decent example. Well, I don't want to talk about it. We've had so much blame laid and so many things laid that we're going to investigate it. We'll get to the bottom of it. But we have a system in place for dealing with those things that allows us to coordinate communication between all the localities in Metro Atlanta and around the state. And what has to happen is the governor has to step up and say, we are declaring this now, we're coordinating the communication, and we're going to move forward. So that's the answer to that. Now, am I allowed to take one more?
Really quickly.
Reduce the number of counties that are in Georgia, because that's really is the problem. One, you have to break down barriers. There are way too many counties. We have more counties, like the most.
We have more counties in any state but Texas.
Yeah, way too many.
Well, it's, you know, part of that is because of how excited we were about local control in Georgia. And there's a lot of good to be said for local control. I mean, we have a very diverse community. We have a lot of issues that polarize people. And so you don't necessarily want to eliminate counties. One of the things that happened for us in South Georgia, my cousin and many of my family went to Tri-County High School, which should tell you about the size of those counties, right? So 3 counties got together and had a single high school. But one of the problems is they've now deconsolidated. So they've spread back out to the 3 different counties again, in part because you had to drive 45 miles for some kids to get to school. And so you've got really big areas, you've got a lot of issues that are out there. But to me, you know, we do have to break down barriers, but it's better and a more effective way of approaching those issues and bringing people together is focusing on the things that we have in common, getting more intergovernmental cooperation, you know, the Atlanta Regional Committee, and other folks like that can actually act on regional cooperation. I think that's the answer rather than actually tearing down the political boundaries. One thing we could do is stop making more. And so I do support that. But you know, I think that the answer for bringing people together is what you guys are doing now. It doesn't have to be tearing down political barriers. It can be tearing down cultural and communication barriers to bring people together. And I think that's one of the reasons you guys are doing it.
that we have to do.
There are efficiencies to be had, no doubt. There are efficiencies to be had, no doubt. And we could get some of those efficiencies without eliminating counties. We could have common procurement for a group of counties, for example, or a group of school districts. And that's the kind of thing that I'm looking at. Thank you all very much.
No, seriously.
Okay, 1, 2. Okay. All right.